Hello and a very warm welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria, around the world, to Global TV AM News, live in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I am Fauziye Lukman. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has met with the Minister of Defense, Chief of Defense Staffs and the service chiefs behind closed doors at the council chambers of the State House, Abuja. In attendance were the Minister of Defense, Badr Abubakar, and Bello Metawalle, Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, Permanent Secretary Abubakar Kana, Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taurid Lagbaja, and his counterpart, Admiral Emmanuel Oganla, and Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar. The meeting is expected to center around the security situation in the country as part of the regular briefings by the security chiefs. President Tinubu will later in the day lead a high-powered delegation to attend the G20 summit in New Delhi, India, where he would engage with world and business leaders to drive investments to Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu departs Abuja today to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi, India, at the invitation of the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. A statement released on Sunday in Abuja by Ajuri Ngilali, Special Advisor to Tinubu on Media and Publicity, says, on the sidelines of the summit, the President will participate and deliver a keynote address at both the Nigerian-Indian Presidential Roundtable and Nigerian-Indian Business Conference, stating that the CEO Roundtable will be attended by leading industrialists in the Indian private sector, Nigerian industrialists, as well as senior government officials in both countries. The platform to attract global capital and promote increased foreign direct investments in key labor-intense sector of Nigeria's economy, job creation and revenue expansion. The presidential spokesman president said Tinubu will seize the opportunity to highlight Nigeria's attractiveness as an investment destination, specifically outlining his cross-sectoral reform plan as captured by the Renewed Hope agenda. Vice President Senator Kasim Shettima says it is essential for the political aides to exercise discretion in both their public and private lives to avoid any actions that could tarnish the government's reputation.
Speaking
the
to
Vice President gave the charge today during the opening ceremony of a retreat and sensitization program on administrative procedures and governance in the public sector. Kike Lomo Okeri has the details.
Participants, which include political aides and senior civil servants, on the topic Forging a Path to Responsible Governance, a call to political aides. Vice President Shettima pointed out that the retreat is designed to facilitate their transition and equip them with the fundamental tenets of public sector administration and governance.
Will undergo more intense scrutiny, occasionally even rigorous criticism. Therefore, it is absolutely essential to exercise discretion in both their public and private lives and to avoid any action or actions that will tarnish the reputation of the government.
On the sensitive of their roles as political aides, Vice President says they are bound by the laws of the country in all matter of official correspondence. These laws outline the consequences for international and unintended mishandling of information entrusted to their care. In his welcome remark, the Permanent Secretary of the State House, Engineer Funsho Adebiyi, disclosed that the training was aimed at registering the commitment of the political aides towards actualizing the goals of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu-led administration.
To look at how to manage what I call our bosses' interrelationship. And not only that, we are here to see what is the schedule of duty of the principal staffs, principal aides of our principals, if you understand what I mean now. What do we do? How do we do it in a way as not to in any way embarrass our principals? Not only that, we are here to also look at the relationship with other tiers of government, National Assembly, as well as the judiciary. It is important, we've soon discovered in the course of our lecture, the interrelationship between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary.
The vice president, however, called for synergy and teamwork, stating that their primary instinct should always revolve around the recognition that they are part of a team united in the pursuit of a shared objective. Kike Lomo Okeri, Global Television News, Abuja.
Despite a one-third reduction in the agricultural productivity in Africa due to the effects of the climate change, the chairperson of the African Climate Summit 2023 and the president of Kenya, William Ruto, stated on Monday in Nairobi that Africa's natural carbon sinks were an economic gold mine. The president further stated that Africa's renewable energy resources were not just for the safety of the environment, but for a catalyst of radical socio-economic prosperity. He urged African nations to solve the energy poverty in the continent through the abundant resources offered by new technologies. The Kenyan president called on African leaders at the summit to converge on efforts, African priorities as a pathway for achieving the financial structures that can deliver African goals. The federal government says it is ready to meet with the labor union today in its desperate effort to avert the Nigerian Labour Congress warning strike scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday. However, the labor union said there was no going back on the two-day warning strike, even as it affirmed that it remained open to negotiations with the government despite breaking its previous promises. Already, some of the chapters of the NLC says they were ready to proceed with the strike, while some others says that their executive committee would meet on Monday as a precaution to the strike. The NLC had in a communique jointly signed by its president, Jao Ajare, and the National Secretary, Emmanuel Ogbaja, on Friday says the decisions to go on the nationwide strike following the failure of President Bola Tinubu's government to dialogue with organized labor on efforts to cushion the effects of the removal of petrol subsidy on the poor masses. Sport Development Minister John Owaeno says the federal government might pull down the National Stadium in Surulere, Lagos, to rebuild and bring back to a functional state. Owan, who had earlier said he would go ahead with the planned concession of the facility, noted that the federal government would only take a decision that will resuscitate the nearly moron facility. The National Stadium, which was built in 1972 ahead of All African Games in 1973, has not functioned effectively for over 15 years due to poor maintenance of the facilities. Speaking at the meeting with stakeholders in Lagos on Friday, Owaeno said he had been forced to give a second thought to the planned concession given the state of the facility, adding that, however, the government will take the best possible option. Minister of Works, Engineer David Umahi, has debunked the news making rounds that his administration is pursuing the agenda to change the asphalt road to concrete so that he could give the work to his company. Umahi made this declaration during a press briefing held at the conference room of the ministry in Abuja. He stated that he has no friends, no enemies, and no companies as far as his assignment as the Minister of Works is concerned. Judith Peter tells us more.
The Minister of Works will also deny the allegation that he was sidelining directors of the ministry. Disclosed that he carries along the directors and accepts their opinions when they are super, adding that he is poised to work in line with the renewed hope agenda of President Tinubu.
I read in social media where one Guardian newspaper is accusing me that I want to change the concept of the asphalt to concrete so that I'll give the job to my company. I don't have companies. Then to my cronies, I have no friend nor enemy when it comes to this assignment. The first and foremost thing is that no man recommended me to the president. I believe that is the will of God for me to be the Minister for Works. And so I have the fear of God, and I want to make it very clear. And I will not place the interest of anybody ahead of the interest of God. And the interest of God is the interest of the people. And the second one is the interest of the president, in line with his renewed hope agenda. They even say that I sidelined the directors in the ministry. It's only directors that can sideline themselves if they don't conform to the renewed hope agenda. I carry the directors, along, and good enough, we are professional.
He said he was aware of the campaign of calumny by some individuals who are not ready to accept the fact that things must be done in line with global best practices. He revealed that a lot of work is not going on in the Southeast and announced that he will be going there on inspection, and whoever has received money for a bad job or an undone job will be compelled to go back and do what he has been paid for.
Through the power and help of God, I can fix any road, but you are aware there is no money. So as Nigerians are praising Mr. President for bringing me on board, I also commend them and I thank God for Mr. President and I thank God Almighty. But it's miracles I'm praying for. Every day I pray for funding to my ministry and greater wisdom to unravel initiate some funding, whether we call it through tax or whatever name we can call it. We have to find a way. You are aware of the economy as it is now. You are aware of the debt burden. And so I'm not going to be pushing the president, so hard. But I will ask you to join me in prayers and to think outside the box. And for us as Nigerians, any fund available, let us utilize it, judiciously and with the fear of God.
He further added that the ministry has always engaged its contractors in agreement with the general condition of contract, which is the standard that all engineers are expected to abide by.
Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu on Monday enjoyed a ride on one of the Blue Line rail coaches to flag off the commencement of the commercial operations on the Lagos Intra-Train services. 6 minutes later, the train taxied with the Lagos State Governor, permanent secretaries, and political leaders on board. Sanwo-Olu's media aide Jubrin Gawat last week disclosed that the rail operations will start with 12 trips for 2 weeks, which will be ramped up to 76 trips per day. According to Gawat, a full journey from Marina to Mile 2 will cost about 750 naira, while zonal fares will be between 400 to 500 naira for people not making the complete full trip. The Department of State Service on Monday says that it has uncovered plans by certain politicians across the country to stage violence protests, mobilizing student leaders and ethnic associations, among others. The service says the planned protest was to rubbish the federal government and security agency over what it described as socio-economic matters. The service spokesman Peter Afunanya said intelligence report at the service disposal revealed that those plotting the protests have been identified, adding that they are being monitored. Afunanya called on heads of tertiary institutions to discourage any form of activity that could disrupt peace in the country. He urged that those who have the intention to take advantage of the challenges facing the nation to cause mayhem in the country to have a rethink. You're watching Global TV News AM, coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We're on StarTimes channel 276. Kindly do follow us across social media platforms using @GlobalTVNG and other handles now showing on your screen. When AM News returns, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure makes a case for tech talents. We have these details and other stories for you right after the break. Please don't go away. is Global TV, bringing you live broadcast of the AM news from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Nigeria cannot ignore her tech talents. The new executive chairman, CEO of the National Agency of Science and Engineering Infrastructure, Khalil Halilu, has disclosed. According to him, Nigerian starlets are some of the best in the world and are making strides in different parts of the world. He said this recently during his inaugural address to the management and staffs of the agency. He highlighted that one of his agendas as VC of the agency is to aid technology transfer. In a statement, Halilu said, "Number one thing we want to look at is the area of technology transfer. Everyone is looking at Africa, and there is no better chance than now. Other countries are competing to bring and exchange technologies, especially with Africa." He further stated that the duty of the agency is to use the country's resources, talent, capacity, and engineering and energy to drive economic development, priority areas of the new administration. Gabonese General Brice Oligui Nguema, who last week led a coup ending 55 years of rule by the Bongo dynasty, was sworn in on Monday as interim president. Brice Oligui vowed to hold free, transparent, and credible elections and amnesty to prisoners of conscience. Without saying when the election will be held, General Brice Oligui Nguema said he had sought the participation of all core groups in the country to draft a new constitution, which will be adopted by referendum. Ukraine's Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov has confirmed that he is leaving his post. Reznikov has led the ministry since before the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in February 2022. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced Reznikov's dismissal on Sunday, saying it was time for the new approaches in the defense ministry. Rustem Umerov, who runs the Ukraine State Property Fund, has been nominated as Reznikov's successor. In a post on X, formerly Twitter, Reznikov confirmed that he had submitted his resignation letter to the country's parliament. Reznikov's dismissals come amid a wide anti-corruption drive in Zelensky's administration, which has been seen as essential to Ukraine's ambitions to join Western institutions like the EU. Ukraine says Russia launched a 3.5-hour drone attack on the southern parts of Odessa region early on Sunday, hitting a Danube River port infrastructure and injuring at least 2 people. Ukraine's Air Force says on the Telegram app that its air defense system shot down 22 of the 25 Iranian-made Shahed drones that Russia launched on Odessa in the early hours of Sunday morning. Ukraine's South Military Command said on social media at least 2 civilians were injured in the attack on what it says was the civil infrastructure of Danube. Australia have successfully evacuated a sick Antarctic researcher from a remote outpost on the icy continent. An urgent rescue operation was launched last week to reach the man, who has an undisclosed developing medical condition. The man is now en route to Tasmania, where he will receive special assessment and care. In an update on Monday, the Australian Antarctic Program AAP says the man had been flown to its icebreaker RSV Nuyina. The ship had traveled more than 3,000 kilometers, 1,860 miles to reach him. On Sunday, it was deemed close enough to the Tukasi Research Station for 2 helicopters. With a medical retrieval team on board to deploy, medical facilities are limited on the research stations and only about 20 people live there during the winter when conditions are at their worst. Before the stage of the rescue mission complete, the ship is expected to arrive back in the city of Hobart next week. 9 places are still up for grabs when the final rounds of qualifying matches for the next year's African Cup of Nations take place in September. A total of 15 countries are already guaranteed at berth, including Ivory Coast, who qualifies automatically as host. The 2024 tournament will begin with the opening match at the Alassane Ouattara Stadium in Abidjan on 13th January 2024. The final will take place on 11th of February. Well, that's it on Global TV News, AM News, live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We're on StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us across social media platforms using @GlobalTVNG and other handles now showing on your screen. I am Fauziya Lukman, thanking you so very much for watching. I'll see you again.